So I think the question really was, why are schools broken, right? I think that's
Yeah,
really where I think
yeah.
we were talking. And so one of the things that I'm challenged with schooling, right, is I compare it with, say, a profession like, say, music,
Hmm.
or say sports, where I think when I look at Kieran Egan's framework, we'll talk to us about the framework. But one thing, when I see the framework, is there is this whole space that he talks about heroes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when I'm a musician, or when I'm a sports, I'm preparing for a profession like a tennis or golf or whatever. I have a
Yeah.
hero, and then what I do is I then start to uh, you know uh, the somatic one that you talk about, and then you move into the romantic, and then philosophic, and then the irony. There's a whole framework that you talk about. But when
Hmm.
I know what I want to achieve in my profession,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
then I basically then spend years trying to become an expert at it, and I have a love for it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
somehow when I go to a school today, I'm not very sure what career I'm going to take up,
Hmm.
right? So therefore I'm actually served what I call as a buffet. Take physics, take math, take social studies, take history. You figure out your interests, and suddenly I do not know what I'm good at, and I lose confidence, and
Hmm.
then I'm actually not sure what I'm going to do. But imagine if I were to say, okay, this is a class for computer scientists,
Hmm.
this is a class for architects,
Hmm.
this is a class for so now I know a mental model of what I want to be, and you can keep switching, right? So therefore when I look at schooling, probably the challenge 100 years back was you're preparing factory workers,
Hmm.
okay. The challenge 100 years later is you are actually want people with cognitive capabilities,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what worked 100 years back may not work today, and
Hmm.
therefore, do you think schooling is a problem?
So let me make sure that I understand the question. It's how do I, it's, do I think that the problem is that schools are made for essentially to churn out factory workers 100 years ago? Is
Yeah.
that basically what you're asking?
Uh, I think it was designed around that.
Okay.
Okay. But today, when you look back, you're saying, oh no, people should think. Okay. But
Hmm.
there, I think you are not supposed to think. What you are supposed to do was, I'll give you a certain task, you get it done. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Therefore, you get it done very well. I think you are perform. But today, I actually put you into things which I do not know how you will solve the problem.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So therefore, when most schools prepare you for, I would think, problems that are known, therefore you can solve it. While today the world is more and more becoming, I do not know what the problem itself is. Go figure it out and solve the problem. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And now the kids are not ready for something like that, and that's the reason where the philosophy of Carl Egan appealed to me, because you're saying no, go and figure out the world,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that is really what appealed to me. So is my
Yeah.
understanding right?
I think your understanding that I'm hearing right now is looking at Egan from the parts of Egan that agree with progressivist a progressivist approach.
Mm.
Um, and right, like I think that there are a lot of progressivists who love Egan, and I think that he brings out some of their best elements. So yes, let me just say that much of what you were saying, maybe all of what you were saying, is in Egan there. But I think that there's a bigger picture for what Egan is suggesting
Mhm.
that is missing from what you're suggesting right now. Is it okay if I say that on your podcast? Am I
Of course,
allowed?
of course, you got to contradict and correct me, and that's fantastic. I think that's the expectation.
I'm suddenly reminded of the title of the name of the podcast. In fact, I feel like maybe I am, in fact,
Yeah.
fulfilling the name of it. Um, Okay, I want to. Can I first back up just because I have ADHD, and if I don't say this, if I don't address this part right now, and it's not important, but I think it's so interesting, and nobody ever says this. I never heard anybody say this, and I think it's yeah. Yeah, so let me just jump in and say something that I want to address with this. When I first fell in love with education, and fell in love specifically, like I said before, with the work of John Taylor Gatto, the guy who wrote the Underground History of Education, who wrote A Different Kind of Teacher, was the book I originally read, the Enfant Terrible. He was actually one of the major voices who was bringing this sort of story of education, that schools were designed to pump out factory workers. He was bringing that into the educational conversation. And I think to a large extent, to whatever extent that is a common thing that we can hear smart people say now, is because of him. I think that I think that his perspective on this is largely true. I used to see this as a villainous thing, because factory workers, that's terrible. And then I worked in a factory. I had a lot of odd jobs, and I realized, it's actually hard to work in a factory, and I'm terrible at it. It's not easy. It's not putting people down. It's actually was the most helpful economic thing to help them rise up. So I came to appreciate that. I think in America right now, we're actually seeing the effect in behavior, in students' behavior in classrooms. I know personally, people who are also personal friends with teachers who have left the teaching profession because of discipline problems, by being punched by students, and having their heads of schools not back them up. Because I think in some ways, even the heads of schools are saying, well, but we don't want to make schools into just training to be a factory worker.
Yeah,
we need to treat the students as moral agents. They've gone so far in that direction that now schools can't even run. Schools are so chaotic, at least in some situations. I feel like this is a moral panic right now in the United States, and I'm always skeptical of moral panics. But I think that also, that was seen as a problem in education 100 years ago, that, oh no, we're just pumping up factory workers. And I think that in some ways, educational traditionalism and educational progressivism arose to try to fix that problem.
Okay.
And the traditionalists said, what we need to do is pump these kids full of the most important, most beautiful, most true ideas that humanity has ever had. And that explains why a lot of, at least in America and Europe, the upper high school curriculum is given to so many academic things. Then the progressivists, kind of in the big divorce of education, of schooling, they got the elementary school curriculum, which is why, at least in America and much of Europe, I should say England. I don't know the rest of Europe. France is a very different place educationally, where so much of the younger elementary school curriculum is very low content, academic content, very low rigor. It's a lot of, let's open up these opportunities for you to express yourself, to become curious, to fall in love with things. So this is sort of the Frankenstein monster that we have now of schools, that begin with 5 or 6 years of traditionalism, and end with 5 or 6 or 7 years of, at least 4 years of traditionalism. And I will say that this is the worst of all possible worlds. I think maybe if you flipped it, actually, it might work better. If you had traditionalism first and progressivism second. I'm not sure about that. I will push back on the idea that the problem is that we're just pumping up factory workers, because I think that we've been trying to fix that problem for 100 years. And I think that our attempts to fix that problem have now become the problems that we've been trying to fix. And we've never been able to fix the problem. We've never been able to make schools into the places that everyone agrees that we want them to be, intellectually vivacious, vibrant places where kids are learning all sorts of new ideas, learning about themselves, learning about the grand world around them, catching up with the biggest insights of science, but also learning about their local communities, right? Learning what it is to be a human being. Everyone more or less agrees. They'll use different words to describe this, these two camps, but I think that there's a beautiful vision of education that incorporates all of that, that everyone more or less agrees on, and everyone more or less agrees that we are failing terribly at that. Whew, okay, sorry. That is my response to the factory sort of thing. You want to respond to that? Because I can also I can piggyback off of the other thing that you said about there's a crucial word, a secret word that you said that I think is the secret to solving everything. But do you want to respond back to what I just said?